All right, Jules, here we are. We have our playoffs in the Champions League. Again, a reminder, these are the teams that finish between 9th and 24th, and they're going to go into the big board, where they're going to meet the teams that finished in the top 8. I think there's only one place to start, with your permission.
Yeah.
With the defending champions, Paris Saint-Germain, who, by the way, and I will lodge a formal protest, and I'm sure all those Paris FC fans out there will back me on this. For some stupid reason, on the UEFA website, you're listed simply as Paris. Look, I'd be cool with that if there wasn't another team with exactly the same name. What happens when they qualify? Anyway,
that's very true, Gabi. I mean, PSG is too long, so it would not fit. That's why they had to go for Paris.
There's lots of ways around it. Lots of ways. Anyway, okay, you can say, oh, it's not as exciting when you play a team from the same country. You played Brest last time, which, of course, isn't really a football club, more of a body part. But, and forgive me for making that joke again. I just don't imagine.
You make it a million times, man.
I know. But I'll never get to do this again. But you're playing a Monaco side that have really struggled over the last 2-3 months. On paper, this seems easy peasy, yeah?
Well, Monaco beat PSG only a month ago in the league. So
that's the only team they've beaten in the last.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they only win really, I think, in the last 10 in all competitions. That was PSG. That was in the Principality at the Stade Louis II, in Ligue 1, as we just said. So I don't think it's easy peasy. It seemed that certainly on that day where PSG went not very good, to be honest, but Monaco raised the level, really stepped up. It's probably one of the best performances we've seen since Sébastien Pocognoli has arrived on the bench to replace Adi Hutter. So with the second leg in Paris at the Parc des Princes, you would think that, PSG are definitely the favorite. But I don't think it'd be easy. Certainly not as easy as it was last season against Brest, where PSG won easily away first, and then at home, I think it was 10-0 on aggregate or 10-1 on aggregate. It won't be the same score this time. But I think this Monaco team has something that can really trouble PSG.
I think it is a fair point, and I was being a little bit sarcastic. Just as I'm sarcastic, I'm going to talk about the cauldron-like atmosphere at the Stade Louis II when Paris go down there. There's certainly a long history of two teams from the same nation, and suddenly that advantage, which exists in tactical terms and technical terms, seems to kind of go away a little bit. We've seen that in the past, and yeah, I think when it comes to Monaco, let's face it, this is kind of their Super Bowl, the Champions League, right? They probably won't qualify via the league. I mean, there's a long way to go. They're trying to regroup. So this is kind of what they need to get a lift and keep their many very demanding fans happy. There you go. All right. Yeah. Enough for Monaco.
No, but you're right. And for Pocognoli, this would be two massive games. And usually when we have the draw, there's a few weeks before those games happen. This time, because of this new format, because it is the playoffs, the games are in 2 weeks' time and then 3 weeks' time. We're on back-to-back weeks as well in February for the first leg and the second leg of all of these playoffs games that we're going to debrief for you now. So it's the team that you see now. Okay, Kvaratskhelia got injured against Newcastle on Wednesday night. He should be back for the first leg because it's only a minor injury. So pretty much the team that you have now for both of them, the ones that you will see at the weekend in Ligue 1, they're the ones who will be there. Probably there's not enough time to turn around your form or things like that much. So we pretty know what to expect. A Monaco team that is struggling a little bit and doubts at times, but still with quality players from Balogun to Akliouche to Camara in midfield, for example, and a Pocognoli under pressure that has to get results. And then on the other hand, for PSG, the European champions, who have been a bit hit and miss so far this season between all the injuries and the lack of fitness, and we saw them being quite tired again against Newcastle in the second half on Wednesday night. That's when they kickstart the European campaign like they did pretty much at the same time last season as well, and we know where that led them. So I'm all for, as you know, a bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, no, it was so much a good omen, but a bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Like superstition, in the way that last season PSG played in the playoffs against another French team. This time they're back in the playoff against another French team, and I'm all for it.
All right, I'm not so into superstition, but then again, that's rational me. We'll find out. Galatasaray host host Juventus in the first leg. All right, talking about stereotypes. I stereotyped Monaco Stadium. You can stereotype visiting Galatasaray away. I'm going to come out and say it. I want Galatasaray to do well. You know why. Because of Victor Osimhen. I also kind of feel at the tail end of the Champions League, I've been disappointed in what I've seen. Obviously, he went to the Cup of Nations. I don't think their outings were as good. I think they dropped points. They lost a little bit of momentum. This is a way for them to get it back up. Against the Juve side, they kind of have, it looks like they finally have their stuff together under Luciano Spalletti. Jonathan David is producing. Kenan Yildiz is fantastic. That's another storyline, by the way. Yildiz, against Galatasaray. But I have to put Juve as favorites here, yeah?
Yeah, I agree with you, Gabi, especially with the second leg at home, which I think it would be a similar pattern for a lot of those ties and a lot of those games. Remember the last time they played each other, the snow, the game that was postponed and played, and then Drogba and Mancini and all of that. I don't know if we will have the same drama in these two games. Let's hope so. We saw a Juve team being quite cautious, didn't want to lose away at Monaco on Wednesday night in match day 8 of the league phase because they were just happy with the point. Monaco were happy with the point as well. But we saw Juventus being very good against Napoli, for example, last weekend in the league, to go back to your point on them finding their feet and being able to put on really good performances collectively under Spalletti now. So this should be good because there's a lot of names that in this Galatasaray team, from Leroy Sané to Gundogan to Osimhen, of course, your favorite, Torreira, Davinson Sanchez, a lot of ex-Premier League players, for example.
And no mention of Mauro Icardi as well, coming off the bench.
Mostly on the bench now. But still, for him, it'd be a special comeback to Italy, for sure.
Let's move on to Borussia Dortmund against Atalanta. Look, I kind of feel, again, we're dealing in stereotypes here. Sort of feel like anything can happen with these two teams. I think Niko Kovac has brought, or has tried to bring, and I give him a little bit of credit to this, a level of stability to this Dortmund side where they're not kind of the self-destructive entity that they were in the past. They're far behind in the Champions League. I found some stability with the back three. Schlotterbeck's having a decent season. They've got major issues up front with Guirassi's kind of losing his scoring touch. But, they take on an Atalanta side where you really don't know what you're going to get because Palladino is drinking the Gasperini Kool-Aid.
Yeah, for me, this is great. It's 50-50, really. And I don't know, maybe a bit more for Dortmund because of the second leg again. They will have a home in Germany. But I think this is very exciting tie between two teams that I don't think there probably is much between them, really. And we like what Palladino has done since taking over Juric. Okay, it's not difficult seeing how bad or average Juric was before. Yeah, before anywhere. But, this is the Ketteler and Lookman. We've got Guirassy, Brandt, Max Bayer on the other side, Adeyemi too. So this could be quite open, quite exciting, quite intense as well in the way those two teams play. So this is one of the games I'm the most looking forward to.
I think also the good thing from Atalanta's perspective is Borussia Dortmund, big game, they raise their level. I think one of the reasons they went out last year, they were knocked out by the team that we're going to talk about next, Club Brugge, led by Mr. Champions League, Hans van Aken, they're like, Bruges, no sweat. And then it bit them in the backside. This time, that team, Club Brugge, taking on Atletico Madrid, and I guarantee you 1,000%, El Cholo Simeone is not underestimating Bruges. Not after what happened in their last outing, not the way his team has been playing.
Yeah, the win against Marseille was fantastic from Bruges, the 3-0 win. The game against Barcelona, when they drew 3-3, was amazing. They're a very attacking team. Leco is doing a really good job since he took over. Nicky Hayden on that bench. They've got young players. They play with a lot of intensity. And, maybe they might be a little too open at times, which I think is true. And even Joel Ordonez, who is the Ecuadorian centre-back, international centre-back, who's really, really promising, who's going to go to a much bigger club very soon. But even him can't just get all those bridges and bridge all the gaps everywhere. So this should be fun from the Bruges point of view. From an Atletico point of view, we've watched them a lot together in La Liga, in Europe. It's still a bit like Cholo Simeone's team. It's not great. They find a way of winning at times. Solot is in decent form. Griezmann is injured. Julian Alvarez has gone missing. So even from an Atletico point of view, you're not really sure what to expect from them. And if I was with Bruges, I say like, let's go for it, because if you hit the right buttons against them, you might get onto something quite special here.
I think we've said this before with Atletico Madrid right now. They're neither fish nor fowl. He's trying to push them to be more attacking. This is not the stereotypical Atletico Madrid of yesteryear, Raul Garcia and Diego Godin kicking people up into the air. They're trying to be more attacking, and he's trying to find the right mix. They do have a lot of weapons. They haven't all produced. I smell upset here.
Yeah, I agree. Could be.
What's that?
I say I agree with you. It could well be the tie where there's a big upset.
I'm just gonna annoy you to no end with talking about Mr. Champions League if this continues. Yes. All right. Up next, Olympiacos. As you know, being Italian, I'm sorry, Leverkusen fans. I had a fun time in your stadium, but I will obviously support the Greek team because of that special affinity that we have. And I like Mediterranean. On paper, you would think Leverkusen, I think, are favorite. I think they actually match up well, sort of player for player, against Olympiacos. Then again, Olympiacos has a guy, Mendilibar, who has shown that he can win in knockout situations.
Yeah. It's a big game for them, obviously. I think Leverkusen, for me, would be the favorite. Again, second leg at home over there. Kasper Schulman doing a good job since he took over that bald guy before, the Dutch guy. Even if at times... Eric Ten Hag, your new sporting technical director, whatever that is, job at 20, where you belong. But for Schulman, I know at times they've been a bit off, and we saw them being, spanked in the league. They lost a couple of games, but they also went away and won a City, for example. So I think there's a good team there.
B team, let's be fair.
Yeah, but still, I think there's something good there. And really, I know Olympiacos pushed Real Madrid, for example, quite well, but Leverkusen should win this game.
Up next, I agree with you. I will cheer in an objective way for Olympiacos, but yeah, Leverkusen, I have them as favorites. Bodø Glimt against Inter. Now, Bodø Glimt, one of these other teams, I think we can lump them in, certainly with Qarabag, we're going to talk about next, and Olympiacos is kind of, we're not used to seeing them at this level, but we are used to seeing them, going deep in the Europa League and whatever else. And for that reason, I know plastic pitch, cold weather, reindeer, Northern Lights, chuck all the stereotypes out there. Whatever excuse Inter want to have when they travel north of the Arctic Circle for the first leg, they can't say, well, we were unprepared. Oh, we don't know what to expect. Right? Bodø Glimt,
no, absolutely not.
Everybody's seen them. You know how to play. I actually feel very confident that Inter have the tools, they have the setup to deal with Bodø Glimt's style of play, because this is a very flexible Inter team. I think he will adjust to the opposition in the first leg, knowing that if something goes wrong, they can always fix it back at San Siro. And, there is a way to play against them.
Yeah, it's an amazing tie for them, for Bodø Glimt. I mean, any draw would have been fantastic for them. It's incredible, one incredible story that they got here, that they finished top 24 and qualified. It's the first Norwegian team to do so since Rosenberg, like a long, long time ago when we were young and fit, Gabby. So great story. Inter, of course, our favorite. Inter will go through. We can tell you that now. There won't be an upset there. I think the gap between the two teams is too big, but it's a good time to talk about Bodø Glimt and the great things that they do in terms of their youth setup, to the way they go about their business with their first team. They've got a culture coach. They're always thinking outside of the box, because they don't have as much money as big European clubs, for example, that can spend. So they have to be creative. They're very creative. They've got a great manager in Ketil Knutsen, who's I don't know why still there and nobody has come and get him to a bigger club, maybe. And even the star players who tried their luck outside in one of the big 5 leagues, Hauge, Berg, and hasn't worked out for them. So went back home and has made this team really special. So it's amazing to see them there. But this is a good draw for Inter, really, and they will go through.
Yeah, I would cautiously agree with that. And by the way, you said they don't have much money. I will remind everybody that Norway are sort of the Qatar of Europe when it comes to royal families and sovereign wealth funds.
Yeah, but that's not Bodø Glimt.
Well, no, it's not specifically Bodø Glimt, but I don't know. It's really funny because I'm going to digress just for a second. We see these teams from Norway, and obviously Bodø Glimt's budget, also because they have to abide by UEFA's financial sustainability rules, is going to be a fraction of that of Juventus or Manchester City or Real Madrid or whatever. I always wonder, within the context of Norwegian football, how do other clubs, fans of also the traditional bigger clubs in Norway, how do they actually see them? Are they proud? Here's another Norwegian club, or are they kind of like, all right, why'd you come and make doo-doo in our pond? If you see what I'm saying, right? Are they jealous? So I don't know. That's part of the story we often miss. All right, let's move on to somebody who, again, another big boy locally in their part of the world, which is very far away from Western Europe and very far away from Newcastle. That is Qarabag. I told you early on when they got that big win on the road, I think it was against Benfica, if I'm not mistaken. I said, careful, they're halfway there, and they did, and they qualified. They qualified in mid-table. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think off the top of my head, other than Sporting, I think they finished higher than any other team from a Big 5 European league, which this is a tremendous achievement, whichever way you look at it. And they take on Newcastle, who on the day can surprise a lot of people. Obviously, Newcastle favorites. I wonder to some degree the factors against Newcastle are going to be that domestically they need to pick up the pace if they want to finish in the Champions League. And also, of course, people are going to bring up the travel. They're going to bring up the cold. Travel, of course, works both ways because Qarabag have to travel all the way to Newcastle. We have Newcastle as favorites, but maybe not overwhelming favorites, right?
For me, they're overwhelming favorite. They can't not qualify. This is the best draw, better than Monaco, 100% for them. And I think if they had to pick Eddie Howe, everybody at that football club would have picked Qarabag ahead of Monaco. I know the first leg would be a bit of a trip and a bit of a journey for them and for the fans. It's also a great adventure. That's what you play in Europe too.
Oh, yeah.
But as good as Qarabag have been at times, we saw them against Chelsea, getting a draw from a Chelsea team that had been, if you remember, quite rotated from Maresca at the time. But yeah, Newcastle for me will qualify. This will be good because I think you can probably, like, without rotating too much, but make sure that your form in the league doesn't suffer so much from those 2 back-to-back Champions League games either. And I think this is great for Eddie Howe. I think this is good for the football club too. To go, remember 2 years ago when they were in the Champions League and they finished 4th and didn't even go down at the time, the old format, into the Europa League. This time they have a chance to make the last 16 of the Champions League, which would be, I think, a great achievement for this squad and the manager.
I to be clear before, I'm not doubting that Newcastle are favorites. I think, though, the domestic league will take a lot out of them. But you know what? By the time this game rolls around, I mean, obviously would rather win domestically, but they may look at the table and say, all right, we're not going to be able to get in the Champions League. This is going to be all our focus, advancing as far as we can. All right, Joes, we have left, I don't want to say the best for last, but we certainly left the biggest for last. José Mourinho and Benfica against his de facto adopted son, Alvaro Arbeloa, and Real Madrid. Round 2, after those amazing scenes that we witnessed just on Wednesday. I think Benfica need to come up with a different script, and I think they will come up for a different script because two-legged games, two-legged ties rather, are just completely different animals, and it's right to approach them differently.
Yeah, completely home and away, of course. Home in Lisbon first, then they will have to travel to the Bernabeu, stadium that obviously Mourinho knows really, really well. I don't know if it's a good thing. Personally, I don't know if it's a good thing to play them again so soon after the Trubin heroics, this incredible finale, a very good win, by the way, from Benfica. Not just the fact that they got that goal that took them over the line, but just overall their performance was maybe the best performance since Mourinho came to the club to replace Bruno Lage in September. So that you've got the momentum. I don't know if it's that good because Real Madrid, on the other hand, would want revenge for having been humiliated by a goalkeeper, having been all over the place in the way they did, missing out on the top 8, which is not good. I mean, remember last season, they were obviously already in these playoffs. They played City. They weren't great, and they went into the quarterfinal in that incredible Madrid penalty shootout derby. But if you can avoid this playoff, you would have if you were Real Madrid and Arbeloa. So this is a hell of 2 games coming up for them, and they would have to be better collectively than what they showed in that Benfica game on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think the parallel to draw here maybe is a little bit like with the Villarreal game, where, Real Madrid, they ended up winning 2-0. They didn't dominate it, but they went out there and they were gritty, and they were kind of, they worked harder. It was kind of a lunch pail, hard hat sort of game. And, they made their superior quality count. And I don't know if you're Arbeloa, if this is the message you send for the first leg. I know you have to send some sort of message because, right now the villagers are out there with pitchforks and torches coming for you, Alvaro, in case you hadn't noticed. And it's really hard to call, in my view, because not to call the outcome. Real Madrid's our favorites, but it feels like Real Madrid, the mood is changeable week, kind of match by match. We don't know what condition Arbeloa is gonna be in heading into this game. So I think it's going to be really, really tough. And look, Courtois can stand on his head, and Mbappe scores a hat-trick out of nowhere. You can count on those 2 guys. And maybe Real Madrid locked this up in the first leg. But if it turns into a grind, if it turns into a war of attrition, I don't know, Jules.
Yeah, I agree, Gabi. And I think that's what Mourinho is going to do, for the great performance that we saw on Wednesday. I think you make it a battle. You make it really physical for them. If you stop Kylian, who's already scored 13 goals in the 7 Champions League games that he's played so far, he's only 4 away from Cristiano's record of 17 goals in the same Champions League campaign, which would be incredible because he's got 2 more games there to get even closer to one of the most iconic records from, especially being Cristiano his idol too. So, but if you stop Kylian, we've seen from the rest that it's a bit more difficult. Asensio got sent off in that Benfica game, so we'll be missing the first leg. Rodrigo got sent off, so we'll be missing the first leg as well. Already in a Real Madrid squad, low in number. And again, you don't have a month between today and this first leg. It's a case of a bit more than 2 weeks, or just a little bit more than 2 weeks. So it's going to be great, I think. It's going to be fascinating and you can just imagine the atmosphere at the Estadio de la Luz in the first leg will be incandescent, and then whatever Benfica can take from that first leg to go to the Bernabeu and make that even more of a battle, then it would be great.
Yeah, we often talk about Unai Emery's record in knockout competitions. With Mourinho, there's so much to talk about that we often forget. But, at Roma, he reached 2 finals, winning one of them in the Conference League and the Europa League, famously. Even when he got sacked at Spurs, he had taken them to the League Cup final and got fired before he could play the final. So this is a guy, and look, you can criticize it. You say he ratchets up the pressure. He plays mind games. He messes with people, dirty tricks. That's what that's what the haters say. And they're not entirely wrong, as we've seen in the past. But that record is there. And if he can get into the heads of the Real Madrid players, I think it can move the needle.
Yeah, and just imagine his pre-match press conference, not so much before the first leg in Lisbon, but before the second leg in Madrid. You can just imagine a packed room with journalists from all around the world, especially the Spanish media, the Madrid newspapers as well, being there, and him being in his absolute element. Like literally licking his fingers on the communication that is going to come out, the man games that he's going to play, everything. He's probably already thinking about this, So just for the Mourinho show, we cannot wait for those 2 games between Benfica and Real Madrid.
Oh man, it's gonna be a bit special, this one, Jules.
Yeah.
All right, there's your wrap. And catch us on the Gavin Jules Show.